Right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Democrat and a Republican walk in the bar.
Into a bar.
I am your Democratic host, Dr. Cindy Banier, and I'm here with everybody.
Sean Hartman, your Republican, and sharing the live video.
Sharing the live video and causing feedback. Our Republican, Sean Hartman, and we are here at Ollie's Pub in Cape Coral. So there you go.
We have an audience today.
We have some folks coming in. That's great. And come and beat the heat here. Grab a beer. I have a tropical Pilsner something.
And I always have my Dr. Pepper.
He's got a Dr. Pepper.
And I just had the grilled cheese sandwich, of course.
Oh, there you go. You have the sandwiches here. Really great. So come have some fun. I heard that hot sauce karaoke is coming up next weekend.
Oh, really?
Again?
Yeah. No, I'm not doing that. I don't.
It'll be fun to watch.
I'll be fun. I'll be going to watch for sure.
Yeah. So thanks so much for hosting us here, Ollie's, and check them out for great live shows and fun events. All during the week, right?
Oh yeah, definitely all during the week, during the weekends. Definitely come out here and support your local small businesses.
So good. So we have some special guests in the audience too. Sean's parents are here. Shout out to them. And his mom had a special request for us to dive into what's going on with our schools this week.
Yeah,
so school started last week.
And I want to give some context here. So okay. my parents are here. My younger brother Zachary is actually starting his first year at FGCU. He's transferring over psychology major. So they're moving him in, so they're visiting, and I invited him over to hassle me on the podcast. But no, my mom is a school teacher here in Broward County. So this is something that, of course, directly affects her, and we often talk about. She's a Democrat, and I'm, of course, a Republican, but we have very good conversations, and we talk about this type of stuff.
You to think for yourself.
She raised me to think for myself, exactly. But yeah, no. So she wanted to talk about a specific issue. I think you'd be better to.
Well, yeah, and I have 3 school-age kids. So I have 2 kids in elementary school and 1 kid in middle school. So.
And I have 0 kids that I know.
Fantastic. So there was a series of legislation that came through the Florida legislature this past session, many of which changed the way that the schools would interact with the kids there. So this includes things like parents need to give permission for their children to be called a nickname, has to do with the ability of parents. It's part of the parents' rights is what it was called, but a lot of it was targeted against LGBT students and things like that. So that's really where the nickname thing comes in. But also we had heard from Sean's mom here that there is some additional paperwork, a lot of bureaucracy happening to kind of like cover up this, but also to protect the school against some things and to make sure that parents are aware of where their students are all the time, including individualized permission for after school.
So any after school program for each individual event, they have to get permission for each individual one. So let's say, for example, you have a theater rehearsal and they want to change the time. They need everyone's parents' permission for that change of time for every single event, which is
sounds like a lot.
It's a lot of bureaucracy for a party that talks about limited government, and it's a lot of stress. I would imagine on parents, which I don't think is going to translate.
I don't want to fill out any more shit.
Yeah,
really
exactly.
Don't.
What parent wants to, and it's very stressful.
I have 11 forms for each one of my kids to fill out at the beginning of the year. And then I'm just like,
see, I'm glad I don't have children, and I know it. But no, it's I find it to be a lot of bureaucracy. Now, again, this really falls on, we said, the parental rights bill, and obviously, I do believe that parents should have the right to know what's going on with what their children are doing. But at the end of the day, you can get that with one permission slip when they do a club. You don't need all of this each time. The other issue, though, that I think I'm shocked that no one has brought up is whether or not this is actually constitutional, because the First Amendment of the Constitution guarantees the right to peaceful assembly. So I can understand a parent having the right to know what their children are doing, including extracurricular activities. I do not think they have the constitutional right to stop their children from assembling where they want to assemble. So I'm shocked that I haven't heard that argument, at least for the clubs.
So I would say that probably not, because children are minors and the parents control whether or not their children can.
Minors still have constitutional rights, though. See, that's. I have a lot. I find it hard to believe that we're denying constitutional rights to people. Tinker versus Des Moines. I don't know what that is. So.
Okay. Students have the right to wear armbands to protest the Vietnam War.
There you go.
Peace symbols, but the school would not allow it. It did not take away from the education. It wasn't disruptive. Therefore, the kids' rights of their First Amendment right held.
So Sean's mom, in case you didn't hear that, just pointed out a Supreme Court case where
she's a civics teacher, by the way, in case you haven't figured that out.
So she was talking about students protesting the Vietnam War, and even though it wasn't disruptive, and they were found to that violated the school not allowing them to wear the armband violated their First Amendment right to speak. Yeah. So, I mean, but again, we're in some very like strange situations, I guess, because the whole intention of the Parents' Bill of Rights is so that parents know what's going on, because the narrative has been that schools are doing things that parents don't know about, which is not really true.
I mean, here's the other thing
really
too.
True.
I think children just do things that parents don't know about, and they're always going to do things that parents don't know about.
Well, there's a significant amount of disinformation and misinformation that's being shared about this. For instance, that your teacher can prescribe hormone therapy for a child. That is not true. That has not happened. There are no cases related to that.
Florida, at least. I don't know if they're outside.
A guardian has to be the one who initiates healthcare for their child. Teachers can recommend different types of healthcare. Like, for instance, if you have a child who's ADHD or potentially on the spectrum, the teacher can recommend that child get treatment or get testing for that. But the parent is the one that ultimately decides the care for the child in the case of a minor. Okay. So, but I have seen, and this is frankly one of the reasons why Moms for Liberty has put out as part of their statement that healthcare does not belong at schools. It's because of the disinformation related to the idea that teachers are providing healthcare for children.
So
Sean's mom
will never make assumptions as to what healthcare a child could need.
Right.
During a parent conference, they may ask the parent, maybe it's time to have an updated physical with child's pediatrician, so you can talk about what's best for your child.
Right.
That's the furthest that
Well,
a
we
school
noticed there's
official
this, there
will
was
go.
this, the
So,
vision thing.
what Sean's mom is saying is that the teachers are not going to be able to do that. They don't go that
Well, they're
far.
not medical professionals either, but they
And that they may make recommendations about a physical or something else, but that's as far as they'll go. And that's been my experience in the Lee County School District. And it was my experience as a teacher, it was my experience as a paraprofessional in other school districts around the country. So it's a fear that has been placed in part of the narrative that is wound up, by the way, in policy that's now being implemented in the schools. And that's a problem for me.
Yeah, no. Well, again, we've talked before already very early on about my position on the trans issue and the trans debate. And obviously this is sort of being used as a blanket to justify it. But at the end of the day, it's a stupid policy because you're giving more paperwork to parents who are voters. And we have 2 special elections that are coming up right now. I don't really think that parents, while they're filling those forms out, are going to think too kindly about the Republicans who are implementing those policies. So
Fingers crossed, everybody. Fingers crossed.
My fingers not crossed for me. I'm hoping that doesn't happen. I'm actually working and coordinating with the state party to try to help those special election campaigns.
Which special elections are you talking about?
There's one in the Miami area for Juan Barquin Fernandez's seat. And there's another in Osceola County where someone was appointed to a judgeship.
So is that House District 107?
I don't know the numbers off the top of my head.
I just have I have a candidate there. If that's okay. So, anyway, my good friend Christina Lebo.
Okay. Yes,
she had
I
run
have
for
heard.
Congress.
Yes, I know.
She and I had in 2022 split the basically Collier County. So she was running for 23, I believe, which was the eastern half of Collier County, and my seat was 2019, which is the western half of Collier County. And so she and I did joint Collier events as well. We also both went to DC to protest the overturning of Dobbs, and I got arrested.
You mean the overturning of Roe v. Wade through Dobbs?
Overturning of Roe v. Wade through Dobbs' decision. horseshit Supreme Court nonsense, and I got arrested in a act of civil disobedience when we were in the center of the intersection outside the Supreme Court, and I was in the wheelchair and on the front page.
Oh yes, that's right. Yeah, that was when you were like still limping around because you injured your leg.
I broke my leg saving my daughter.
Yeah, it was a pretty interesting story actually, but yeah, that was right in the middle of the campaign.
Yeah, that made it super fun.
Oh, it's a good optic. It's a good optic for sure.
Rolling around in a wheelchair.
They're arresting me.
Yeah, so getting arrested was a big highlight of that. But anyway, so that was Christine and I. Christine did it. She chose not to get arrested during that. There was something about a Black woman getting arrested that is a little bit different optics for her campain than it was for mine.
Yeah, good point. Unfortunately,
yeah, I mean, so I rode that one, rode that PR train.
That would have that would have worked for your side. I mean, of course, we would have. Anyway, but.
Hey, listen, our congressman is a triple felon, so what are you going to say?
Was he actually convicted?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And then he married a white lady, and magically it all went away. Yes.
No.
Yes. I have receipts.
No.
Here's my opponent.
No.
Anyway.
No.
That's right. Okay. So, all right. So, so school, there's a lot of craziness, and I'm sure it's going to come on. It's, we already have huge attrition in the state in terms of teachers leaving.
I've heard of this as well.
Thousands of open positions. We are, almost we're at the bottom of the nation in terms of teacher pay. And teachers are leaving because they don't want to deal with this. They don't want to deal with the book bans. They don't want to deal with the parents. The small vocal minority of moms demand people who basically are astroturfing the campaigns. And I can tell you that for sure here in Lee County, because all those people who were going to the school board and advocating for this, the bathroom bills and all this other nonsense, were not parents of Lee County school children. They were in fact older folks and oftentimes not from this area, from Collier, from Brevard, from other areas. And I have some great TikToks on that.
We do have a lot of advocates from this area too who are parents as well. I know them, but
Jada, and what's her name on the school board got elected.
Yeah, Jada got elected, and then
what's the other lady that was fighting with Jonathan Martin?
Tara Jenner.
There you go, Tara Jenner.
Who's our vice chair of our party right now.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, there's been several shouting matches on video between.
Yes, no, of course, but yeah, first, yeah. Anyway,
good times. So, but there's the vast majority of people that would show up were not Lee County parents.
I stopped doing the school board stuff around 2016. It was just getting too exhausting. I was involved very early on with the opt-out movement, and
with the defunding of our public schools.
Oh yeah, well I think that was the inadvertent effect. But again, our issue.
No, that's the actual intention. The charter school movement?
Oh, the charter school movement. Yes, I am a big supporter of school choice, which would have.
Why not? Why not allow public dollars to go into private coffers? Why not? So, and actually, there was a piece that came out in Mother Jones this week about Erica Donald, Byron Donald's wife, and her potential to be a Secretary of Energy pick by Donald Trump.
What?
So
Byron, wait, hang on. And I love Byron, I love Erica to death, but what qualifies her? How is this not different than Hunter Biden's qualifications for Burisma?
Well, that's a great question. So her qualifications are because she's made millions of dollars over the past several years because of the legislation that her husband passed in the state legislature that allowed for widespread charter schools across the state of Florida. So she has subsequently opened the Optima Foundation.
Secretary of Education, not Energy?
Secretary of Education.
You said Energy. That's why I was confused for a minute. I was like, why would she?
My bad.
Education, I can understand. Yeah, she's been very involved.
Education.
Yeah.
So education is the Optima Foundation, the Optima Ed, and then one that's called like Charter School Change Networks or some other crap like that. Those three companies work together to set up charter schools around the state. So the foundation is the one that takes donations to help schools pay her Optima Ed to set up the schools, and then the consulting and management company run the schools on behalf of it. So basically, every time a voucher comes into a charter school set up by Erica Donald, the money goes to her foundation to set it up, or her foundation to set it up, or her company that sets it up, or her company that manages it.
Yeah, so we have two issues here. The first is the issue of potential corruption between Erica Donald's connections to all these private school, charter school companies. And
They
Byron
take
Donald.
11% in perpetuity,
Yeah.
by the way.
It's definitely, it's shady for sure. I'm not denying that it's shady, but there's also the issue of school choice. Now, for me, the issue is I think that the dollar should follow the student, not the school.
Okay.
And the reason for this, and for me personally, I went to a special needs school in high school through the McKay Scholarship. Had I not had the McKay Scholarship, I wouldn't have been able to go to that private school. And we can obviously talk about, okay, if we give more funding to public schools, they can have the resources to do all these things. That's a very fair argument. But the point is right now they don't. And I think that parents have the right, and children, students in particular, have a right, especially at the high school level, to decide what direction their education needs to go. Yep.
The McKay Scholarship did not cover the entirety of your tuition.
Mm.
Your
Or the
parents
housing.
had, or the housing.
Sean's mom is correcting the narrative.
My mom is making it clear that she also paid.
You're lucky enough that you had parents who could supplement
Mm.
what was left of the $22,000 a year, right?
Mm.
So his parents supplemented the
Tuition
scholarship.
Minus the McKay Scholarship.
Yeah.
Not everybody, most people can't afford that.
Right.
Yeah, which is again
Yeah.
why I support
So-
school choices and school
And
voucher
school
systems.
choice is a lovely concept,
Mm.
but in practice, however, it is unregulated.
Yeah.
You can hire teachers that have no teaching certification. You do not have to abide by ADA. You do not have to provide 504 IEPs for students, and a lot. Yeah, they're not accredited. And on top of that, the vast majority of students enrolled in charter schools in the state of Florida, as well as around the country, perform behind public school students because of all those factors. So
which
there-
is why I would support putting some regulations and strings attached to school vouchers for that reason. I could absolutely.
did a Republican just say regulations?
Yes, I know. I am for smart regulations, not excessive regulations.
I just
I
think
do think that there is a problem within our party where we are so focused on deregulation as we want to deregulate everything without any rhyme or reason and understanding why a regulation exists. If we have smart regulations that focus on, protecting people, that's really where regulations need to be there. I mean, everything, public, if you talk about public safety, how do you keep public safety? It's through different types of regulations on
Absolutely.
behavior. So
Politicians stay out of politics and education, let the educators take care of it.
Sean said, let the educators take care of education.
Well, yeah,
Well,
I actually agree with that. I'm a big. I actually my thesis paper for my issues in politics and economics was about the threats to academic freedom from these policies. I think that liberty depends on an educated populace. I don't know the exact. Do you know the exact quote from Thomas Jefferson about education and liberty?
No, but I'll look it up.
She's got to look up this. There's a quote from Thomas Jefferson that's really good on this topic, and so I break from my party on this sort of censorship issue when it comes to academic freedom. I don't think that we should not teach these things. I don't think it should be the only thing we teach, which I don't think it is. But again, I don't think we should be censoring people from learning different theories and learning different concepts. That's just plain wrong. That's just like censorship of ideas. And we often talk about within the Republican Party having a marketplace of ideas, a free marketplace of ideas. Censoring information and censoring education is not a free marketplace.
I'm
of ideas.
fascinated to learn about the free market of ideas in the Republican Party.
It used to be a very big issue, and some
Fascinating.
Republicans still
Fascinating.
talk about it. But unfortunately,
Since
that's
the
not
free
really,
market is really not a thing that exists, and there are no free ideas in the Republican Party. So
the quote
really
is,
interested
hang on,
to
we got
see
the
how that
quote.
works.
We got the quote.
Our liberty depends on freedom of the press, and that cannot be limited without being lost. Is that what you're talking
No,
about?
it's about education.
Okay.
No, wrong one. Liberty
Okay.
and education. He has a quote on it. I don't
So-
know what it was, but
Right. So long story short, Sean is actually a Democrat, and
no, do not. No. No.
I'm gonna get him fired. I'm gonna get him fired from the Republican Party.
No, God. No, there are certain issues where I do break away from my
He doesn't
party.
love choice. He doesn't love anti-LGBT legislation.
No, I'm pro-life. You know I'm pro-life.
Okay.
Per school choice.
School choice. No, I am supportive of school choice, I said.
He
Yeah.
said schools should be locally controlled. Students should have
Schools should be
access
locally controlled.
I don't think that's it either. Never mind, Mom. I'll find it.
Actually, Sean could just be recalling a meme that was totally incorrect.
That's very
Because
likely.
Thomas Jefferson believed in liberty of property, which included enslaving people. So,
Yeah, he don't do.
yeah. Anyway, including his own children. So what other things should we talk about here? So education going, by the way, let me just do one pitch before we move away from education and the bullshit that is school choice. Please, please, please drive safely in school zones, drive slowly, do not pass school buses, do not park on sidewalks, do not come out and try and hit cars that are waiting in car line with a chain, which is something I witnessed here.
What?
Yeah, the guy who lives across the street from my kid's school came out with a chain because he didn't like people standing in the line, in the car line, and he tried to ram them with his car. Fascinating. Don't do that. Let's everybody take a deep breath and understand that back to school is a stressful time for teachers and parents and kids. And let's be safe, because I am always heartbroken every single year when we have kids that are hit and maimed and killed at waiting for the school bus and things like that. So let's all just take a deep breath and get through this together.
Well, yeah, no, definitely keep safe out there. I do know that that first week of school it kind of tends to be a public safety issue, so definitely be careful out there. Try to, if you're not going through a school or needing to go to a school zone, try to stay away from
don't drive by the schools, guys. Just don't.
That's really the simplest solution.
Don't
I
go
feel
anywhere near them.
they're not like in they're not always in places that you need to go.
Right. Like take another route.
There's other ways to get around here.
Okay, so are there any other issues that you want to talk about?
I mean, I don't know what you want to talk.
I want to talk about Monique Worrell.
I figured you'd want to talk about Monique Worrell. I didn't necessarily want to talk about it, but I figured.
Well, of course you don't, because then we have to admit that Ron DeSantis is an authoritarian.
Well, honestly, that's the reason why I don't want to talk about it. To be completely honest,
he hates when I'm right about the Republicans being authoritarian. So,
I hate when she's right about Republicans behaving in an authoritarian manner. I don't think the Republican Party is itself a pro-authoritarian party.
Most people who show authoritarian tendencies vote Republican. That's a psychological fact.
That actually is.
Which your brother will find out as he studies.
Yes, there is authoritarian personality.
Yes, that's true. So Monique Worrell is a state attorney in Florida. So she's elected state attorney. This is how it works. Both our defense counsel, public defender, the chief public defender in an area, and the state attorney are elected positions. They are partisan positions in the state as well. So those folks are elected, and then they serve, and they basically are the leadership for the other public defenders and prosecutors below them in a particular county.
Yeah.
All right. So Monique Worrell was elected and kind of seemingly out of nowhere removed from her post this past week, for not following regulations related to minimum sentencing and things like that. Now, here's what I understand. There was no actual evidence that was put forth on this. This was more like a feeling based on public statements that she had made. And I really think it's just a diversion so that Ron DeSantis can double down on his war on woke, because his presidential campaign is in the shitter.
Probably what we talked about last week, how it's become a disaster with the DeSantis campaign. He was at the Iowa State Fair, and him and Kim Reynolds coming up, and they were chanting, "We want Trump, we want Trump," and I'm like, oof. So not a good thing. And then Trump comes to the Iowa State Fair with a bunch of Florida congressmen, including Donald's. So he has his little Florida entourage to taunt Ron DeSantis. So it hasn't been good for Ron in his presidential run, and it's kind of disappointing. It's like how the mighty has fallen. What I will say,
turns out not having a personality is a super big impediment on the presidential campaign.
Why everyone goes. Yeah, no, and even people within our own party are thinking it's embarrassing, and it kind of is. But anyway, he's so he's so wide. He has those wide shoulders. Not tall, he's wide. He talks with his hand, and it's always like this. Anyway, so I have two thoughts with the state attorney thing. So
I know what you're saying. He just the Thai food comment.
What?
He likes Thai food.
Oh, have you ever heard this story?
I don't want to know
this story.
I don't want to know this story.
Okay,
no.
So here's the Thai food story.
Oh,
okay, the Thai food story goes like this: Ron DeSantis is such a douchebag that when he was trying to date chicks in college,
I do know this one.
That he would purposefully tell them that he wanted to go out for Thai food instead of Thai food, right? And if the woman corrected him, he would instantly dump her.
Right.
because he didn't want a woman that was going to correct him.
Oh my God.
So yeah, so that's the
Yeah.
Wait.
that's the true story.
That is
Well,
apparently.
that answer, but thoroughly I'll go with you.
Yeah, and it's like, and it's kind of gross, and yeah.
He's a thigh guy.
So yeah, it just really demonstrates like the mentality that he has. And really, can you just imagine being the chick that's not on a date with Ron DeSantis? You're like, did you just say that? Like, do you know it's thigh or tie or? And what a pathetic way to try and control
And
women.
why would you want to date a guy who's like that?
And by the way, does Casey DeSantis know that it's called Thai food?
Ooh.
Anyway.
So what were we talking about again?
We were talking about what a douchebag Ron DeSantis is.
Oh, I thought,
Oh,
no,
is there-
I thought we were talking a political topic.
well, that is a political topic. That's why he's losing. Okay, so
Yeah.
all right, so Monique Whirl, much like Andrew Warren, who was similarly pulled from his
And then
post.
not only that, so we had this 2 school board from Broward County. One of them's a family friend of ours, Patty Good, was also removed from office. So my position on this, I have two thoughts on this. The first is, if the roles were reversed, it's not a good thing. And so that's where I look at it as a limited government conservative. The reason I want limited government, because even if our side has the power, at some point the roles can be reversed and then they would have the power. So let's say hypothetically 2026, Anna Eskamani beats Byron Donalds for governorship. Then she could, in
What a
theory,
weird vision that is.
well, they're the 2 people who I think are going to be the people. Anyway.
Well, that's cool because that means that you don't think that Trump is going to win and Byron's going to be vice president.
I don't actually, but that's a different story altogether. But anyway, I don't even think Byron's going to be picked for vice president because again, you can't have 2 people from the same state. We've discussed this multiple times.
I don't know if that's true.
That is true. Mom, which amendment is that?
2 people from the same state, regardless of the top 2
Now the top 2 ticket, they can't.
There's no amendment.
There is an amendment that says that the
I teach
state,
American
oh my
government too.
God, the state, if a president or vice president are in the same state, the state electors cannot vote for that presidential ticket. So if it's a Trump Donald's ticket, Florida will not go red under any circumstances.
You're not voting for the vice president. You're voting for the president.
Well, it's a
Right.
part of the Constitution,
Right.
the 11th or 12th Amendment. There is a stipulation. This is why Dick Cheney had to move from Texas to Wyoming.
It would be the 12th Amendment, but I'm going to check.
Mom's doing the research on it. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
All right.
Doesn't matter. Okay, so
When I'm right and you're wrong, I'm gonna gloat. But anyway,
his mom's looking that up, but
but
mom's a fact checker. So
here's the thing. Okay, here's what I
so we're
wanna-
back to Andrew Warren and Monique Whirl.
So for this, so in theory, if you say we have Governor Anna Eskamani or any Democratic governor wins in 2026, then they can, for example, take out Amira Fox and put in a Democratic progressive state attorney. They can take out Jada Langford Fleming, who we're talking about, put in you as the school board if she wanted to or they wanted to. So I have a problem with a governor having this power and authority to remove elected officials.
Oh yeah.
With that being said, I actually don't think the state attorney should be an elected official because what we're talking about here with both Worrell and Warren is the issue of prosecutorial discretion, which is actually protected by a Supreme Court ruling. Do not ask me what ruling it is. I forgot what it was, but there is a Supreme Court ruling that protects prosecutorial discretion. I personally don't think prosecutorial discretion should even be a thing, but the point is it is. And
So how would we get them if they're not elected?
so it'd be the same way, and I know you wouldn't like this.
Appointed?
But appointed, yes.
So
Appointed.
that would make it even more political
it would.
and more authoritarian, frankly.
Well, it would make it run by the governor. It's the same way that the president does it. But again, my thinking of this is the judicial system has to be separate from the electoral and political process. Justice has to be blind in these situations.
We
And
have
the argument-
plenty of judges that are elected as well.
I
But
disagree with that
it's-
too. I
think
disagree
it's
with
a
that.
difficult thing because nobody knows how they are because those are nonpartisan
You
positions.
can't ask them certain questions. They'll use the judicial candidate.
Yeah.
So, and I also don't think judges should be elected either. But that's my thinking on it is that, and the reason Ron DeSantis is allegedly removing these people is I would love to hear why prosecutorial
She's a
discretion
lawyer, by the way. So why do you think prosecutorial discretion should be a thing?
shouldn't be a thing. And the reason I don't think it shouldn't be a thing is because it allows the prosecutor to basically make a decision on what is prosecutorial. That's probably not a word, but what is essentially legal and illegal. So at the end of the day,
Well,
the
what
law
cases
means-
they're going to take.
yeah. Well, what cases we're going to take?
She's a former prosecutor.
Former prosecutor. Yeah, but there's I just don't know if they should.
I don't
have
know
the-
how we don't have it.
I
guess
can
is the point.
understand. I can
Like,
understand
because at
well,
some point there's going to be a decision as to whether or not to take a case or not.
Yeah.
And that's going to be based on a myriad of things.
Yeah, and
including
that's
your
what the
philosophy.
Supreme Court ruling talked about. Is it's such a complex issue that prosecutorial discretion is a foundation of that because you can't really do it. I just don't like the idea of an individual having that basically personal right to essentially decide what is a crime and what
But they
isn't.
do.
Yeah.
And listen, I've actually gone after Amira Fox for this on several occasions because of my long-term history here as a bicycle and pedestrian safety advocate.
Mhm.
There's been a very big problem in Lee County with not prosecuting people who were driving in a car versus a person incident because it's actually super hard to prove. There's virtually no physical evidence to be able to pin a prosecution, pin a guilty verdict on a car versus a person, because if they're dead or whatever, like it's a massive mismatch, right? And it's been a huge problem that people in the bicycle and pedestrian safety community have talked about for a very long time.
Yeah, no, and
right?
this is a big issue for
and
me
they
too,
want to
as a
win. I mean, that's
bicyclist slash pedestrian.
yeah. I mean, it's Amira Fox's philosophy has been she wants to win.
Of course.
Okay.
Of course. I mean, that's most
And she
prosecutors
says
want to win.
this one's going to be hard to prove, so we're not going to take it.
Yeah. Which again, I don't think they should be making those decisions on that. They should be, prosecuting as many as they can. And again, that becomes an issue of, resources, which is
Yeah, where's your small government?
yeah,
at?
exactly.
Once again, those principles versus fiscal conservatism
It's the principle
bump
versus
up against each
pragmatism
other to
debate.
prove
Yeah.
that it's a bunch of bullshit. All right, so great. So
You
that
could cut in
thing,
other areas, I'm sure.
listen, this is not even the first time on this podcast that you're the fiscal conservative stance versus the principles have butt heads. Oftentimes it does that. Okay. So, all right. So we both agree that it's not cool to remove elected people from office just because, your presidential campaign's failing.
Well, just for any
Reason whatsoever. Okay, great. So what else? I'm going to let you pick if you have something in mind.
Do I have anything else in mind?
Because I have some other things in mind.
No, I can't really think of anything right now.
Where's the governor's jet headed?
There's an app for that.
What?
And who's paying for that?
Yeah, the governor's, there is an app
Yeah, I do know
called
that.
actually it's by Rebecca Jones is putting it out, but it's the follow the DeSantis jet. And yeah, the Florida taxpayers are paying for the jet and the car that was in a crash in Tennessee that Ron DeSantis left the scene of.
Oh, yes, I did hear about that. Who was in a car crash?
Yes, he was in a car crash and left the scene. So might be prosecuted for that. And it will be on the Florida taxpayers' dime. Yeah,
I know that.
Your fiscal
I
conservative
know.
alarm is going off.
Yeah, it's
now.
like no, and this is something I do know that was an issue during the legislative session where they passed something that would make it harder for journalists to get information.
Yep.
Affecting his campaign, which is another issue of transparency, which I don't like.
Yes, yes. Trump indictment.
Trump indictment. Is there another one? Is there what? I thought we already did 3. Or there's a 4th one's coming.
Well, the Georgia one's supposed to be coming down this week.
Yeah, you know me. I'm so tired of talking about it.
No shit.
Just
Well,
someone.
we're tired of Trump
someone-
fucking disrupting our American democratic
I'm
process.
very interested to see whether or not they're gonna put a gag order on him. This is such a complicated.
Well, they did put the protective order on him, so he's not going to have access to any of the sensitive materials in the January 6th case, which Jack Smith, by the way, has put to go to trial on January 2nd, which will be a fascinating anniversary for the January 6th insurrection. And what that means, and they did that because of his threats on Truth Social and the potential that he has to intimidate witnesses.
Yes, I've understood that, and I guess he was also trying to, or the potentiality of him sending out information or deleting evidence, or all these different things that I heard. Again, I'm tuned out of it now. I really am. And then I know that they just do.
How about the Federalist Society position that Trump is disqualified because of the 14th Amendment because he participated in an insurrection?
The Federalist?
Yeah.
Really?
You, huh? Yes, really.
Holy crap, that is big. That's like, because the Federalists, those are the people who helped him select the Supreme Court
Of course they
justices.
are.
They're all Federalist people. That's
Yes,
not
and
a
they're
good sign for
constitutional
him.
originalists,
Yes,
and they
no,
believe that the
They're my
intention-
type, and Jonathan Martin's actually a graduate of the Federalist
Oh,
Society
that's
too. Mhm.
Oh, is
So,
he?
yep.
Oh.
So, they're a big constitutionally conservative organization. So,
Yeah,
wow.
they're originalists.
Mm.
So wow. So what do you think? Do you think that's going to hurt
If I think
Trump, or
it
you
does
think that that's going to be the legal foundation that the Republican National Convention uses to not seat Trump
I
once he
think-
wins the?
I think it's well. I
Primary.
think it will be used as an by the RNC for sure. We did mention last week that they're considering a rule to ban criminals from or convicted criminals from being the nominee, which again I would support from the standpoint that the Republican Party is supposed to be a party of moral
Supposed to be a
authority.
party of law and order.
Yep.
Sure, have a lot of criminals.
Mm.
This answer is
No comment. Yeah, and we have criminals on both sides.
no.
There are bad
no.
people on both sides.
Throw the both sides flag.
I'm throwing the both sides.
Speaking of both sides and criminals on both sides, Southwest Florida Congressman Greg Steube, otherwise known as the second-rate Bond villain from Sarasota, has filed articles of
Yes, I did hear about this.
impeachment against Joe Biden,
Mhm.
which assert a cavalcade of wrongdoings, everything from drug use
Yeah.
to corruption, and then he disappeared for comment all of Friday. What do you think?
I have not read his charges for impeachment. Again, I from my understanding, Kevin McCarthy is going through a very procedural process in order to do this with an impeachment, possibly even impeachment inquiry.
Mhm.
It's the same thing that Nancy Pelosi was doing, I think, as well. You know, they were going slow, and then they started setting it up. I do think we're eventually going to get to a point where we're going to have at least an impeachment inquiry. I don't think it's going to pass the Senate, and I think that these past few impeachments, regardless of your opinions on them, have weakened the power of the impeachment because they've become too political and too partisan.
Yeah, I really think trying to impeach Donald Trump because he led an insurrection against the U.S. Capitol was a huge political issue. And
I
I
know,
think
you're
the fact that the president
I
led an
know.
insurrection against the U.S.
I don't
Congress
think
is
he
a
actually-
much bigger political
I mean,
problem.
we'll see if he actually gets convicted for leading an insurrection. I don't think that was his intent to lead
No,
an
of course
insurrection.
not.
I don't.
I was following it all along. That
No,
was
you have to
absolutely
prove.
intent.
You have to prove he was doing that, and I think that's going to be.
I think
one.
they got a lot of proof,
So the
and they have
Federalist thing is nothing.
they
Well, the
actually
federal,
have.
yeah, exactly. The Federalist thing means nothing if he's not convicted of a crime. But if he's convicted of a crime,
Actually, what the statement from the Federalist was is that just the implication that he has been involved in an insurrection against the United States was
Really?
enough to disqualify him.
wow.
Yep.
But yeah, that will
Um,
be an interesting legal argument, and I think that's what all these other candidates for president are hoping for.
So apparently, part of the evidence that Jack Smith has is evidence that Donald Trump's lawyers were intricately involved in the coordination of. I'm sorry, this was not Jack Smith, but the Fannie Willis in Georgia. But they have evidence that his lawyers were involved in the election fraud scheme there.
Yeah, where they were doing what fraudulent electors. I think that's what they're trying.
Well, the fraudulent electors, but also the influence on the governor and the election overseer there.
Claire, no, not
Yeah.
Claire.
Well, Clarence Thomas is a whole nother thing.
There's a whole other thing. I was thinking.
Oh, so now Sean's dad wants to talk about Clarence Thomas. All right, so what about your
Well, this
friend
is-
Clarence Thomas,
Well, I
who
think,
I've met, by the way. And if
really.
you have any doubt about what Anita Hill said in her hearing for Clarence Thomas when he was getting confirmed to the Supreme Court, you should not have any doubt. He exudes sexual harassment with every word that he says.
Okay.
I say that as like when I was super hot 20-year-old in Venom.
Okay. Anyway, so I find it interesting that you brought up. So we've been doing the GOP training, and I'm part of that GOP training every week, where we're training our members, making sure they know what their responsibilities are, and we talk about some of the political issues, or talk about some of the aspects of government. And there's a part of the lesson where our vice chair talks about how Supreme Court justices, a lot of people think they're chosen for life, which is effectively true, but technically they're chosen until for good behavior. So they can be removed, of course, if they're experiencing bad behavior. And I've just been finding it funny that we've been.
That's not true.
It's not true. Okay. Why is it not?
They can be impeached.
Yes, that's what I meant. Yeah.
They can be impeached, but they're selected for life. Their term is for life.
Yeah. No,
They
that's
can
why I think
resign
it's
ahead of time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, but I think but that's what she says, and I kind of agree. I have to reread the exact provisions of Article 3, but I'm pretty sure you're right. But the point being though is that I don't know if we want to bring that up when we not only have Clarence Thomas with serious accusations of bribes, but Samuel Alito also came out. So that's two conservative justices that if we're talking about good behavior, it's not good behavior to be bribed, and I think that's a very serious issue.
it's not good behavior to be bribed. That's
Yeah.
very.
You heard it here first.
Um,
I'm taking the bold stance that bribery is not good.
so there's actually the ethics committee. They're in the Judiciary Committee in the House. They are trying to put together ethics standards for the Supreme Court, and Alito punched back on that, saying that there's actually no capacity that Congress has of oversight over the Supreme Court.
No, that makes absolutely no sense.
Ah.
I think that the Supreme Court, when you actually look at the Article 3, it's probably the weakest defined. It doesn't even define that there has to be 9 justices there. There used to be 7 before.
We could
There used to be
absolutely
5.
have more
You can add or
justices.
subtract justices.
More
So
justices.
the fact of the matter is the Supreme Court is subject to congressional legislation.
Yeah, it's called checks and balances.
And that's the whole thing. Exactly. That's elementary school
Separation of
civics.
powers, guys. And he's just saying that he doesn't want the oversight.
Mm.
All right, so let's talk about something a little bit more.
Yes, I know you. I figure you want to talk about this too. I just see this on your screen. I actually spoke to Jonathan about this quote, so he thinks it's a definite misinterpretation.
Okay.
And Chris himself was not there. He
Sure.
heard it from multiple people.
So this is, in case you haven't seen it, you can go to my Instagram. This is a
An alleged quote.
not verbatim, okay, but it's an interpretation of what Jonathan Martin had said. It's on my basically it's saying that if you can't afford your house because of the increase in insurance costs, you should just move.
Yeah. So when I saw that, I would immediately messaging what's the context of this? Where was this? And then I asked Chris as well, where he got it as well. So he heard it. Apparently, it was at the UPAC that morning.
It was Kerry Lerner, who was the Democratic Party chair, who was there, and there were several other people there that corroborated. I added the "don't count on me" part, okay, because I was trying to be pithy. But the essence of the quote with him saying, honestly, I was putting it on Twitter saying this is his "let them eat cake" moment.
Yes.
Jonathan Martin thinks that if you can't afford your house because the Republicans have fucked you over with the insurance, you should just move. Just move.
So
Just move your house.
here's
No big deal.
Here's the funny thing about Jonathan Martin. He is professionally someone who sues insurance companies for a living. He's not the fan of the insurance companies. And when I was speaking to him, actually,
Well, that's not what his financial records say. He's a big fan of the insurance companies.
Okay.
They put thousands of dollars into his campaign. Interestingly enough, he raised $120,000 in 2022. He had no opponent. Jonathan Martin won his seat in April, right after he filed, because there was no Democratic opponent, there was no Republican opponent, there was no write-in. Jonathan Martin won his seat.
There was technically a write-in, but it wasn't as strong. Right?
It didn't matter. So he raised $120,000, including several $1,000s from insurance companies. So tell me what they bought. What did they buy? What did those people putting money into his
according to
campaign buy?
Jonathan Martin, they bought a cap because according to Jonathan, he is writing and drafting legislation that will put a cap on insurance cost and price increases. So that might be, I don't know if that's what they intended to buy, but that's what they bought.
Well, we'll look forward to that.
And I do look forward to that. I think it's a very good proposal. In this case, what Jonathan told me, and again, I wasn't there, so I don't even know. So what Jonathan told me is he was speaking in the context of his own self, where he was moving, and he wasn't providing any specific recommendations or policy points.
That was not the interpretation of
All right.
other people there, and it was very callous, and it shows that he's actually not somebody who gives a shit about people because he never had to campaign and he never had to be accountable for anything. I
actually agree with you there,
Senator Martin, if he wants to exonerate himself and prove that this was a misinterpretation, go ahead and give us the tape. Find the tape. let us know what you really said, because
Who was
everybody that was
recording it?
there, I don't know who was recording it there, but if he was actually a person who gave a shit about what he said and his integrity for the people that he represents, he would be interested in not just, oh, I didn't say that, because here we have other people who disagree. And let me tell you the anger that this aroused, because people in the state of Florida are getting dropped by their insurance company. They are getting priced out. They are having, 800% increase in prices. And by the way, the last resort, Citizens Insurance, is bankrupt. So how are we supposed to live here when, by the way, we have county commissioners in this county who continue to greenlight building in flood zones? They tried to greenlight Captiva, South Seas adding additional height and density. They greenlighted Greenwell building in an A flood zone, an evacuation zone on his land that he greenlighted after he was elected to the county commission. So I want to know the audaciousness that he has to say something that even sounds remotely like he's telling people just to eat cake, okay, is offensive.
So again, I don't think that was what he said. Again, I wasn't there. I hope that there's still a debate, because I know there's been talks about a debate between Chris and
I'd love to have
and I
Jonathan
think we
come
need
to
to
a
have
debate.
that discussion in the debate, on the debate stage. But I don't think Jonathan is or if he is bought by insurance companies, they got a bad purchase with the legislation that he seems to be proposing, and we'll see exactly.
Well, in the
final
future,
draft. Yeah.
we'll look
But you're
forward to
right.
him having integrity.
But I will agree with you on one thing, which is what's been going on with property insurance and homeowners insurance down here has been a disaster, and it is a fault of our side not doing enough, and that is definitely something we've dropped the ball on. And I think we need to, at the very
Okay, listen, I love that you said it like that, because it really gives the Republicans the benefit of the doubt. But the very first thing that passed through the Florida legislature this year was a bill that made it more difficult to sue your insurance company. When
which I thought was stupid. I thought was stupid. Right after
and I will say, and I haven't checked this, but Jonathan Martin said he was only one of 4 Republicans that voted against it. And if he did, thank you.
No, I don't think he did.
Well, that's what he said, and I don't care either way, because that is the first agenda item that was passed, which shows who the Republicans are really playing for, and that is for their insurance donors.
Yeah. No. Okay. I will. That was not a good one. I'll just leave it at that. And it's because it hurts consumers. It hurts the people that you're supposed to be protecting.
Absolutely.
And this is, of course, a very big issue where all these different corporations purchase politicians, and they normally do. I think it's 3-1 Republican and Democrat. They buy both sides, but most of the time, they give more money to Republicans.
Yeah, nobody likes corporate Democrats either.
Yeah, no, of course not. No.
So, because they are the same, but they're a very small minority, but they are a powerful minority even here in the state of Florida.
I don't know
Okay,
if they're that small of a minority, but you have
In
a
the
lot
state of
more
Florida,
prominent,
we
and
don't
you have
have
a
that
lot
many
of
Republicans.
prominent corporate. You do have a lot of prominent non-corporate Democrats. And
Debbie
Estimony is one of them.
Wasserman Schultz is one of them.
Yeah.
I mean, they control the party, which is unfortunate, but that's why
Most
they're
of the
progressive.
Democrats in Congress, I would say, are corporate Democrats. I think you're Democrats in the state legislature.
I don't know. I would have to
except for
analyze.
maybe Maxwell Frost. Probably.
And I don't know where he was getting Bernie dollars to win his primary.
Of course. Yeah, he got all of that, and he's.
But this is why, when I ran, I pledged to not take any corporate PAC dollars. And this is basically a standard for progressive candidates, whether they're congressional or down ballot. Let's just get money out of politics, because it's horseshit.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you there. I think that's the one thing that you can get some agreement from the left and the right, is there's too much corporate interest from both sides that are trying to basically create policy.
Let's get back to working for the people, for the everyday people, and work for your constituents, right? Like, why is that such a crazy idea? Jonathan Martin didn't even have to meet anybody. Ron DeSantis, did a little thing. He elevated Ray Rodriguez, who had been the state senator. They elevated him to the board of governors because Ray Rodriguez was the head of the Senate redistricting committee and greenlighted during the special session, the congressional map that Ron DeSantis had put forth that incredibly gerrymandered this state, that disenfranchised Black voters.
Yeah.
And because Ray Rodriguez checkmarked that, he got a nice, sweet job at the board of governors. And all they did on the very last day of qualification is swap in Jonathan Martin.
That is so. Yeah. So just so everyone actually understands what happened, because there was a lot. I was involved a little bit with the internal drama involved with that. So they basically appointed Ray Rodriguez like a week before qualification ended. Jonathan Martin immediately filed. He was immediately endorsed by Ron DeSantis.
No.
Oh, what was
It
it?
wasn't immediate.
It wasn't.
Listen, because I was watching it, because I had people that I was trying to run in that race.
Yeah.
Okay. So it wasn't public, and it happened the last day, the Friday, the last day
Oh, yes.
of qualification in April.
And so
2022.
Tara Jenner, who we were talking about, she's our
Right.
current vice chair. She had actually, right before that, had sued Jonathan Martin because there was a situation where Jonathan was trying to stop her son from recording the meeting, and during the
Because he was the lead GOP chair.
he was at the time the chairman of the Lee County the Lee County GOP. Her son was recording, which they didn't want, and he was trying to shepherd him out, and apparently touched him, and that was a show of force, and she was suing him for that. So she tried to run. She had actually had someone fly her to Tallahassee to file on that day to get into the race. And then she was disqualified, and I forgot exactly why, but they disqualified her for some reason. And the whole thing was really shady.
I think
I'm
probably because they
And I
had to,
say
I
this
think they
is-
had to be on at noon.
Yeah.
Not like 5
Yeah.
p.m. or something.
So, and I love Jonathan. We go way back. We're very good friends. But yeah, the way he started out his campaign was very, very shady.
Yeah. It's what would be called corruption and nepotism. I mean, he was a buddy of a buddy, and he was a DeSantis backer, and he got the placement.
lot of that cronyism going on. Nothing new in political history, unfortunately.
No, and nothing new in Florida. I mean, in fact, it's incredibly endemic here, and it's disgusting, and it's one of the leading reasons why I've been involved in politics. I mean, actually, the leading reason. It was because the dumbest people I knew were in charge, and they were giving their money to their friends, and I couldn't.
That's so true. That's one of
I
the
couldn't stand
reasons.
it anymore.
And this is one of the reasons I actually really like doing this podcast, because and I love my fellow Republicans, but I can't really talk conservative policy with them sometimes because it's they're not there for the policy, they're there for the fight.
Speaking of dummies,
Oh, God.
let's just before we go, Brian Hammond
Oh, what?
resigning from his position
Yeah.
on the as CEO and president of the Greater Fort Myers Chamber of Commerce. Brian Hammond is the county commissioner for Lee County, and he was supposed to recuse himself if any of the members of the chamber came forward with a bid or a contract that was supposed to be approved by the county commission, but there were numerous apparently that he sat and voted on. What do you think about all that?
So I honestly, I was kind of uncomfortable from the get-go from him getting the Greater Fort Myers Chamber of Commerce job. I thought that was too much of a bridging of public-private, and they're just created a ripe opportunity for corruption
Absolutely.
and conflicts of interest.
Absolutely.
So I wasn't, and again, me and Brian go way back. We're good friends as well. But I didn't really feel super comfortable with it. I'm glad he resigned. I'm not glad that's the reason that he's saying. Apparently his father is
apparently
sick.
his father is sick, and we do
And so
hope that his father and him are doing well. And
Yeah,
his
so
family
our
is
thoughts
okay.
and prayers are definitely with the Hammond family right now. My comfort level was basically on that's the merging of two things that should be separate. The Chamber of Commerce and the businesses there come be in front of the county commission, just like our Cape Coral Chamber of Commerce comes in front of the city council. I wouldn't be too comfortable if Donna Germain, who's the president of the Chamber of Commerce, ran for and was elected to the city council and retained her position as president of the Chamber of Commerce. I think that's too much of a conflict of interest. I do think that, obviously council members and commissioners should be involved and connected with chambers of commerce to understand business issues and
Sure, but let's be fair, because the county commission is paid at like $135,000 a year. It's expected to be a full-time job with that kind of salary.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't.
So,
why does he even need
Double
to
dipping for another six-figure salary is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, as a professional in this area, I am more than tired of seeing that. I'm more than tired of people getting retirement pension from one place, moving down here and taking a high-level job to just coast in as their sunset career. Not that that's actually not what Brian Hammond's doing, but this is kind of part of what is
we
the
get a lot
culture
of-
here.
We
And
get a lot of people who are
It's-
candidates and higher in office in one state. They'll move down here, carpetbag, run for office down here, and then try to
his name's Stevenson and Ford O'Connell and
We had Dan Bongino that one time.
Fuck Dan Bongino. My favorite thing is every time that Dan Bongino is trending, I'd like to point out that I got more votes than him when he was a carpetbagger here in Florida.
That's interesting. Are the Democrats running anyone for Congress this year? Do you know? You're not running, are you?
I'm not running. I'm running other candidates.
Yeah, you're managing. I do know that, but I didn't know if they were going to be running anyone in the House or they're just gonna.
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, I'm excited to see.
We're actually looking at putting a full slate of Democrats out.
Oh, I'll be honest. I enjoy it when you guys do that. It makes it more fun for me.
I enjoy, and the reason that so the meme that we put out about Jonathan Martin was actually I posted and created for my candidate Chris Proya, just full exposure on that, and it made me really happy because a lot of times Republicans strategize by ignoring Democrats, and he responded, and we made him respond, and we got people to be aware of what's going on. We got people to be aware of his financial record, and made him respond. And so I'm happy with that. Like I think that that's what needs to happen because that's actually accountability in a democracy. And that's the end of our show.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, and thank you to my family, of course, for being here
Thanks
and
to
supporting
everybody.
me. And for all these people over here playing, guys.
And next week you should come and join us. So
Yeah, we're here every week at 4:30. So
Yep.
if you ever
come
wanting,
at 4, grab a drink, have some
every
fun.
Sunday at 4:30.
They're shooting darts here, listening to us gab on, so it's a lot of fun.
Usually at Mar-a-Lago, but we came here
Woo!
today.
Oh,
Yeah,
good, yeah.
come on.
We're better than Mar-a-Lago, trust me. Unfortunately, though, we don't have any secret documents for you. No.
So
I'm not that connected, yeah. Yeah.
yes, so thank you to Ollie's. Come and check them out. And if you enjoyed this session, we would love to have you become a subscriber. Go to bigmouthmediafl.com, become a subscriber for $4.99 a month or $49.99 a year, and we will send you this podcast as well as the full edited video right in your mailbox, in your inbox, and you can support all of our Big Mouth Media shows for $19.99 a month, and you'll get all of that as well as our articles sent directly to your inbox, and you help to keep independent media alive. So I have been your Democrat, Dr. Cindy Banyai,
And I am, of course, your Republican, Sean Hartman.
and we'll see you next time
See you next
on
week.
the Democrat Republican Watch. Bye-bye.